So you get a call for a placement from your foster care agency, and they don't want to just place you with one child. They want to place you with 2 or 3 or maybe even more. Let's talk about fostering sibling sets. Lauren, and this channel is called Lauren Fosters, where we talk about all things foster care and adoption. And today in particular, we're going to talk about fostering sibling sets and why it's so important. If you're just checking out my channel for the first time, I am former foster youth. I'm also a foster and adoptive mom. I've got 10 kids all together. We've been fostering for about 10 years in 3 different states. We're a military family, so we moved around quite a bit. Fostering sibling sets is super important in my own story, and not only because I was part of a sibling set when I was in foster care, but also because we fostered several sibling sets, several who have been reunified, and now we're getting really close to potentially adopting our second sibling set. So as you can see, it's a big part of our foster care story. I made a video not that long ago about fostering teens, and I will definitely share that link up above or down below, but I know there's a lot of apprehension that goes along with fostering sibling sets because you are signing up for a much bigger package when you agree to foster a sibling set versus fostering one child at a time. I think when most of us are getting into foster care for the first time, and I was guilty of that myself, we tried to take kind of like the easier routes. I mean, if there is an easier route in foster care, if you've been doing this for a while, you know that foster care is hard regardless of whether you're taking sibling sets and teens or you're taking that newborn fresh out of the NICU or out of the hospital. Different levels of hard, different types of hard, I guess, but certainly all still hard. Awesome, right? I wouldn't be doing this, but still hard. But if you are kind of newer to this, or maybe you remember and you look back to when you were kind of newer to this, maybe you were like me and you looked into this and said, what is like the easiest route? Like, can I just have one child at a time, pretty please? And preferably no special needs, maybe younger children. Once again, if you haven't checked out my fostering teens video, definitely check that out. But we assume that maybe there's like an easier way to do this. But when we first started out in foster care as foster parents, we did kind of set an age range. Our age range was a lot lower. With that said, we had biological children at the time, and they were also younger, and that's up to you. There are families that do it that way, and there's definitely families that kind of don't worry about age order or any of that kind of stuff. But we did say we wouldn't mind taking sibling sets. So sibling sets is definitely something we jumped into way before some of the other things. And later on down the line, in a whole nother state, a few years later, we did get licensed to take some higher levels of care as well. When I talk about higher levels of care, I'm talking about potential minor special needs. In our case, we weren't taking any severe medical needs. We weren't a high needs home, but we did take, I guess your like medium level of care. I think every state calls it something different, but we were willing to take and able and licensed and trained to take kids with maybe some heavier behavioral needs or some mental health needs and that kind of thing. So we weren't basic level of care in that particular state. But one of the very last things we signed up to do was take older kids, which is crazy because I was one of those kids at some point, an older kid brought into care. But this video is about sibling sets, so we're gonna stick to that. But the average first-time foster parent is not signing up to take several kids at once. I don't even know that we had assumed that would happen to us. Most of us just wanna kind of dip our toe in and check the temperature a little bit before we dive in head first. And for those of you watching this video who aren't part of the foster care community and are wondering why a foster parent would ever be apprehensive to take sibling sets, I mean, I'm just saying it's a lot. And I mean, if you want to like sign up to do this, like we could really use a hand because we need all the help we can get. I'm just saying, maybe that's a good sign for you to sign up to foster. Well, I would definitely agree that none of us would ever want to see sibling sets broken apart. Unfortunately, there are situations where that does happen. Take, for example, super large sibling sets. I do know families that have taken a piece of a very large sibling set. One that pops into mind is, I believe it was like an 8 or 9 sibling set, and that sibling set got broken apart. Now, there are homes out there that open their doors and they're wide open and have the room and the ability to take tons and tons of children. A lot of states do have a max on how many children you're allowed to take at once. Now, with that said, a lot of states will kind of go around that rule in order to keep sibling sets together. But even so, most parents aren't signing up to do foster care and saying, I will take like the largest amount of children you can hand me all at once. So just for the sake of everyone's insanity. Sometimes they'll split apart sibling sets, especially by age group. They may kind of put the older kids and the middle kids and the younger kids together, but it's not super uncommon for extra large sibling sets to get split apart. That's pretty common even when you are trying to keep sibling sets together. And another scenario that you might see, and this one is really kind of something that can't be helped, which is that I mentioned a bit earlier that we were at some point were kind of a moderate level of care. So usually there's basic, there's moderate, and then there's more of a high level of care type home, and that may vary in your area. I know I say that all the time, but it's true. State by state, that has varied what we've called it and how many levels there are and what kind of training goes along with that. But you may have a sibling set that comes in, and let's say they've got 3 siblings, and one is in need of a high care home, like a high special needs, maybe medical care home, and the other 2 are basic needs children. They may put those basic needs children in a separate home, and they may put that other child in a home that can better tend to their special needs. And they try to avoid that when they can. But unfortunately, like some special needs homes, for example, may not want to take basic level care needs kids only because they may only have so much room. And I know in the particular area I'm in, there are not a lot of special needs homes. There are not a lot of high level care homes. So that room they have for those kids is precious. They need every bit of room they can get, because if a call comes in, that is the only home they're going to have. So I think we only have 1 home in our area. I don't think we have any more than that. So that means that those basic level care children are going to be placed somewhere else, and it's heartbreaking, for kids to be split up a lot of times, because especially those kids may be being put in the basic care needs home or worried about their sibling and vice versa. So that's tragic and unfortunate, but there is a reason for it. So I'm if a home can take both and they're willing to and they can, and your area has tons of homes like that, awesome. It's just not necessarily the case across the board. So that might be another reason you see sibling sets be broken apart. But what we never want to see is sibling sets broken apart just because foster homes are super scared and apprehensive to take sibling sets in the first place. But I'm here to tell you it's not as scary as you think it is. In my story, I was a girl in an all-boy foster home. My brother and I, basically just the gist of it is that he's a year and a half older than me, and we were placed in a foster home originally, and I was middle school, I think early middle school at the time, and we were placed in a home originally where there was a father and a mother and then just us 2. So we were kind of a double whammy because we were both tween and teen, that kind of like older age, and we were a boy and a girl. And what you'll see a lot with sibling set placements, it's really hard to find homes that'll take teens, and it's really hard to find homes that will take a boy and a girl, even if they are related. I will get into that in just a moment, but I will say in our particular story, we were placed into a foster home where we were the only 2 kids at the time, but then later that placement didn't work out, so we did move to another home where we were, for most of the time, we were in foster care. So like the rest of middle school for me, all of high school. And you might be saying, Lauren, why were you placed in an all-boy foster home? So the deal was, in our particular area, there weren't a lot of homes that were willing to take a sibling set, and because the one home we were in didn't work out, there weren't any other homes, they asked these foster parents, hey, look, I know you take only boys, but will you take this girl also? And I wish I could have been a fly on the wall in that conversation, because I would imagine the original answer was no, but I wasn't there, so I have no idea. That home did take only boys at the time, and they tended to take a lot of kids straight out of juvenile hall. So they tended to take kids that had already, that had either been placed in juvenile hall, and then they started investigating the parents while they were in there and realized they could not return the child home, or the child had already been removed from their biological parents and then placed in a juvenile hall later, and they needed a place for them to go after they were released from juvenile hall, and maybe their placement didn't want to take them back or whatever. That was the home that those kids were placed in. So they said yes to a lot of really hard placements, and we were no different. It was either that, or I can only imagine my brother and I would have been separated. So moving in as a 12-year-old girl, they did take a lot of precautions with me. They made sure my bedroom was on a certain side of the house, and that I had my own bathroom and that kind of thing. They were watching real close at all times to make sure that I was safe, and it worked out fine. I know that's probably not everyone's story. When I share my story, please understand I'm sharing from my own experience. If you've been in my same exact shoes, but it was a horrible experience, my heart goes out to you. But in my particular experience, most of the guys were actually really sweet and kind, and it wasn't that big of a deal. I talk a little bit more about that once again in my fostering teens video, but it wasn't a bad deal after all. And my brother and I got to stay together, and I will be forever grateful for that for the rest of my life, that we had each other, because we faced some really hard things even while we were in care. And part of my story is that we were orphaned. My mom passed away when I was 15, and she was our primary caregiver, so that was something that we were able to go through together because we were placed in the same home. I forgot to mention one more reason why they might separate sibling sets, other than just not having the homes that will take them, because that's really what this video is about. Is hopefully some of you hear this and you feel the pull and the call to consider fostering sibling sets, even if you haven't before, or at least let your agency know that you're open to it enough to at least have that conversation, so that they're not just not calling you. Like, maybe they can call you and maybe you can say no, but at least that door is open just in case. But there is one more reason why sibling sets might get separated, and I've seen it happen, and it's when one of the children is a danger to the other children. It's rare. I've heard that terminology be used in places it shouldn't have been. I think kids fight. I think there's times kids don't get along, but I'm talking real genuine safety concerns. Like, maybe these children were removed from their parents, but one of the abusers was a sibling. They're most likely going to not allow that sibling to be with the other children. I will tell you, for the very first sibling set we adopted, we were their 7th home. There were a lot of behavioral issues, and I bring this up because I do think that sometimes sibling sets get separated because maybe they don't get along or whatever. And this is what almost happened to our boys. And so I want to encourage those of you that are already fostering sibling sets. I know that it's hard, or kind of going into it, and especially maybe you're getting sibling sets for the first time. Sometimes we see kids, especially if you don't have biological kids or other kids already in your home, if you don't really see that kind of sibling rivalry thing pop up, or you've never seen that happen yet, you may look at your kids that are fighting and go, whoa, they just like can't stand each other, they don't want to live together, and that kind of thing. But there was a time with me and my brother that we used to fight, especially when we were younger, like that elementary school age, like maybe middle to late elementary school age. We didn't get along very well, and I think there was a time, brother, if you're listening and watching this video, where he punched me in the back even. But we became really, really close through the foster care process, and just all the things we were facing in life together really bonded us. I don't know that it does that for everybody. I think it's a high level of stress that kids are going through together, and people react differently. Some kids might get a little more bonded over it. Some kids might kind of grow a little further apart. But I'm here to tell you that siblings fight. That's what they do. And it doesn't matter if they're adopted or biological or foster siblings. I mean, on any given day at my house, I mean, anybody could be mad at anybody and really dislike anybody, and it just is what happens. And it doesn't mean they hate each other. I mean, they may tell you they do, that in that particular moment or in that particular day or in that particular week, they may not really like their sibling, but they always love their sibling. And I'm really glad that my 2 boys that almost got separated, we were even told by the caseworker, look, like, your home is like the last ditch effort on keeping these boys together. We've tried everything, and every foster parent has complained that having them together is a huge issue, and maybe even a trigger for each other. And they were going through a lot, but they've also done a lot of therapy together and that kind of thing to start to work through and sort through some of the things that they've experienced in their little lives. But at the end of the day, they're still brothers, and I can tell you right now, they wouldn't trade each other for the world, and they're super glad to be together even though they don't always get along. In fact, one of the biggest traumas for one of my boys, and that's a whole nother story, a whole nother video for another day, is the trauma just from the day he was removed. And yes, from his biological parents, that was like a huge big deal, and it definitely rightfully so. But one of the biggest things he remembers was being separated from his brother, who was hospitalized for a couple of weeks, and during that they had placed him in a home. He could tell you everything he ate, he can tell you everything he experienced, what things looked like, sounded like, smelled like that was a true trauma to him, because not only had he lost his parents in that moment, but he had lost his brother, his older brother in that moment, somebody that had been there his entire life. And so he was worried about, of course, his safety, and is he okay, and why is he in the hospital, but also just not getting to be with him was a huge, huge deal, and something that still, after years of therapy, affects him to this day. Then I think about the 2 that we're currently fostering and we're super close to adopting, and I think given their genders and given their ages, which by the way were very close to my brother and I's, younger sister, older brother, about the same amount of age gap, both coming into care, are about the same age, about the same age they came into my home was about the age we came into care when I was in foster care. And I look at my particular area, and right now we are desperate for homes. We don't have homes for teens, and we don't have homes for special needs, and we don't have homes for sibling sets, or just homes in general. And I think, like, you know, it's not like people were lining up to take an older sibling set of a boy and a girl. I definitely know foster parents in this area that take only girls or only boys, and the fact that they could have been split up breaks my heart. All that to say, I know that some of you are thinking, I could never do it. I'm just not equipped. That is so much at once. And listen, I get it. Once again, if you're a brand new foster parent, I completely understand why you wouldn't just want to jump in the deep end and go straight for sibling sets or teenagers or special needs, but the need is there. And I'm telling you right now, it could mean the world to kids growing up and getting to be with their siblings. And I think some of that is like life-changing, like the rest of their life, the trajectory that they go in could be so vastly different just because they get to stay with a sibling set. Of course, when it's safe and when it's appropriate, because it's not always, and I mentioned that earlier, but generally speaking, regardless of whether they get along or whatever the case may be, siblings want to stay together. They may not tell you that, but they want to stay together, and it is something I promise you they will be forever grateful for. So foster mom, foster dad, or those of you looking into foster care for the first time, consider it. You are probably more equipped than you even realize. I mean, like, how do any of us get equipped for this anyway, right? We go to training, we do all the research we can, and once again, I know that there's a big difference between jumping from, like, you know, 2 kids to 4 kids. Like, I get that that's like a huge jump, regardless of whether they're your biological kids or adopted kids or foster kids or whatever. Any big jump of kids in your home, amounts of children in your home, is going to be a major thing. But definitely consider it. I mean, you could be making such a life-changing decision that affects these kids forever and ever and ever. And I promise you, they will be grateful at some point, even if they're not always openly grateful in front of you for getting to stay together. But anyway, I hope that is encouraging to all of you. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, comment below, tell us your story. Are you currently fostering sibling sets? If so, how's that going for you? We would love to hear some sort of encouragement that hopefully encourages other people to look into fostering sibling sets. And if it's a struggle for you, guess what? We want to hear that too, because if we can encourage you or lift you up, this community would love to do that. So please look at the comments below if you can encourage somebody or give them a kind word. I'm sure it would be greatly appreciated. Anyway, I hope that helps, and I will see you next time. All right, bye.